Hello, health champions. Welcome back to another episode of The Taboo Doctor. On today's episode, we are joined by Dr. Samuel Iwar, who is a medical doctor and is now redirecting his amazing skills to counseling and supporting people in their psychological health and also in their relational health, because we know that the state of your relationships often also affects your cortisol levels and can also manifest in physical health problems as well. And today we're talking about mental health, but mental health specifically in relation to men and the way our society has socialized men to interpret their mental health and seek out help and support for their mental health. A big shout out today to all our listeners from the Ukraine. Thank you so much for being huge supporters of us. Welcome to the episode, Dr. Iwar.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. My first podcast, actually. So.
Oh, that is awesome. We are so glad. Thank you so much for joining us. So before we jump into today's episode, tell us a lot about yourself.
A lot or a little?
A lot.
Okay, that's new. I think the biggest thing I would want anyone to think about me is that I'm a humanist. I find that a lot of us choose to define ourselves by our utilities, and by that I mean our roles in society. So usually I would say I am a doctor, I would say I'm a husband, I would say I'm a father, friend, son, all the usual stuff. I'm a counselor in training. But I think that I really want to be seen as a human being, and obviously this is gonna have some connection with what we're talking about, because I think that there's a distraction. There's a tendency for us to be distracted when we spit out all those many things about ourselves, and people begin. There's a sort of discrimination that comes from it. So if you're married and I'm not married, then I feel some type of way. If you say you're a doctor and I'm not a doctor, or I'm the cleaner in the hospital, then it's and all these are just roles. So who am I? I'm Sam, and I'm a human being. That's what I would say. But I guess I've also answered the question traditionally in a way.
Okay, that is awesome. And what do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? That is so interesting. I don't know if I've had fun in a really long time. I think I like to go on vacations. I'm someone who just likes to see new places. I'm really curious about people. And when I was in med school, oh my goodness, I used to go for vacations almost every 3 to 6 months. Because I went to school in the Caribbean. So, there were so many islands to go to. St. Martin, Antigua, Barbados. And you'd have all those deals. So yeah, we would travel, and yeah, it used to be fun. That's actually the last time, we'd go see dolphins and climb, and yeah, I don't remember the last time I had fun, since I've just been either working, getting married, having kids. I've been busy, but I think I'll start having fun soon enough.
Oh, we hope so. The Caribbean is so beautiful. The Caribbean is so beautiful, and the water is so blue.
Oh my!
It is so blue. I did my electives in the Caribbean, so I split my time between Bahamas and Jamaica. So yeah, definitely a stunning place.
You notice the peace that you have when you just, oh man, yeah.
That does sound fun. That does sound fun. And we were talking earlier, but I want you to just tell us a bit about how and why you made the transition from doing a noble career as a doctor to another noble career as a counselor. How did you make that switch, and what were the triggers in your passion to do that?
Right. It was just practicing medicine, having patients come in whenever they felt comfortable enough to share their life with you. They would share these things that I would be like, but this is it's not medically related, it's just, it's struggling at home, in the marriage, and with the husband, the wife, and then the way the kids would be affected. I would see all of those things, and I always wondered, we don't really have much to help this. You know, these people had been to all the available people that they thought could help. They'd been to their moms. The moms would give advice based on their own conditioning, on their own history, without any understanding of what mental health looks like. And they would go to the pastor, and the pastor would try to use the Bible and his own experience and give them that advice and then pray for them. And it wasn't working. And you know, for many of these people, you know how it is, like, if say for example your pastor tells you do this, right, and he tells you it's going to work, and you try and you do it and it works, but it doesn't sit well with you. So I'll give you a specific example of that, where your pastor could say to you, like a specific case I had where the husband was cheating on her. You know, he would say, just make sure you're having sex with him as often as you can. Make sure you're giving it to him. Make sure you're doing this. Make sure. And so the woman would go home. So this particular episode she was talking about, the pastor came to the house and told her. So she went home. You know, she was home that night. Went into the bedroom, and she said she felt like she was raped because. But you know, she couldn't share that with the pastor, you see. So obviously she had sex with her husband and everything looked okay, quote and unquote, and it just seemed like it was fine, but she was dying on the inside. So you get advice from people that works but doesn't work for you, and you can't really go back to them and say this isn't working, so you have to keep quiet. And so that just keeps the person dying on the inside. And I was hearing stories like this and I'm like, oh my god. And then you have all that resentment building, and then they explode with the children. It was just so powerful to observe. And so I would get some of those patients to come after my shift at work. I would see the husband and the wife, talk to them, equip them with some skills, you know, conflict resolution, how not to be abusive. But obviously, because those issues were deeper than that, many times they would try, but they would still fall back into those patterns. And I was thinking to myself, I need to know more. I feel like I need to have more tools to really help these people. And I also realized that I had more fulfillment. So I would be at work, but I would be looking forward to the time when I would, you know, work with clients based on, you know, their relationships and their mental health. So I realized that was you know, like someone I heard someone say once that your purpose would call you, all you need to do is pick up the call, something along those lines. So yeah, I guess I picked up the call. So when I moved to Canada, it was just kind of a new opportunity to just do something different. Another thing I think for me was I didn't really like, when I came to Canada, the medical model of seeing patients just on the go like that, on the fly, like what's the symptom, blah blah blah, tell me, I get you out, get others in, because there's a lot of people waiting outside. I just really like this space where you can sit down and people can really talk and they can share their thoughts, and they can, you know, I mean, we have something called talk therapy. You don't even have to do anything sometimes. You just let people talk. I've had clients who would spend the first 3 hours of their sessions just talking. They've never had the chance to talk, and they get to those points where they're like, they hesitate, and I'm like, you know, you can actually be brutally honest here. Nobody's gonna judge you. You can tell me you hate your mom. You can tell me you hate your dad. You know, you can tell me you wish your wife was dead. Yeah, I get people say things like this, and here's the thing. I know how this sounds, but people feel this way, and the only way we can do something about it is they can talk about it, and then we can say, why do you feel that way? But sometimes, you know, there's no space to talk about that because there's judgment. Oh, brother, you wish your wife, you know. So I really enjoy that. So yeah, that's how I found myself here.
That is really amazing. And you know, I want you to talk on what you just, you know, a few things that you just hit on, because I think sometimes, and I think perhaps also in our culture, we underestimate the importance of our mental health, on how it plays a role on our physical health and manifestations of disease in our physical health. Because I think sometimes people feel, oh well, the only thing that your your mental health can cause is maybe you feel a bit tired or you feel a bit stressed, but actually it does end up playing out in the manifestations of quite significant kinds of diseases as well. So what do you say to people who feel that they should just put their mental health to the side or put it to the side burner and not ignore it and just ignore it and just keep moving on as though nothing is going on?
Right. I think that it speaks to the productivity of our world, which is something I was trying to allude to earlier on. What does it mean when I say I'm a doctor? It means that I go to the hospital and I take care of my patients. As long as I come to work and I do that every day, most people are not really concerned. You see, most people become concerned maybe when I kill myself or when I do something, and then it's like, oh, so he was going through that.
Wow.
And we want people to perform their roles. It's like we're always saying, just do your job. And I think that people recognize that pressure. And so there's a tendency to not think about yourself, but to think about how you can perform your duties so that people can view you in the right light. So again, I'm a doctor, I go out there, I perform. People praise me like, oh, he's such an amazing doctor, so caring, comes for the extra shifts, does all of that. I'm a cleaner, oh yeah, always on time, always, very punctual. I'm a father, oh, amazing this, amazing that. And we're always struggling to perform. So, and it's interesting I mentioned father. How many fathers have we seen on camera outside that we think bad father or bad mother? It's only when they're inside, when no one is watching, that we get to really see, because we're all performing, right? We're all just trying to level up, oh, amazing dad, amazing husband, he bought all the gifts, bought all the this. There's this guy in Nigeria right now, like 3-4 women have left him. I think he's been married 3-4 times. And I heard him speak once, and I could see the anger boiling out of him. And I was thinking, oh, if this guy at home, but he's so soft spoken. He when he on Instagram, on the web, my love, my angel, my light. There's a performative attitude that we have. So I think that society does that. I mean, it's kind of a wicked cycle because we are society too. So there's a pressure on us, and we're putting that pressure on others, and we're trying, so we forget ourselves. And I think that's why I say I'm human, because it's that idea. Because why should it matter if you're divorced? Why should it matter if you don't have kids? Why should it matter if you're barren? Why should it matter if you've had sex? Why should it matter if you've done this, you've done that? Why should it matter if you don't have an education? But you're human. You are. And if people could just see that, then I think mental health will become a conversation. Another aspect to that I think, especially from the African perspective, is we think of things, there's a dual nature to our thinking. It's like either good or bad. And I think we have that, it's either physical or spiritual. So if something is physical, you can see it. If you can't see it, it's spiritual. And how do we deal with spiritual stuff? We go to the pastor and we pray. That's it. So if I'm feeling down, I call my pastor and he prays for me. And he tells me, pull through, push on, keep doing it, there's almost a suggestion that more of self-will, more of determination will get you through. And I think people are just pushing through. And this is bigger than it sounds. People just pushing through. They're just trying to get through the day. And that's where that word surviving comes from. It's like, I'm just trying to get through today. I'm just trying to move through so that I can finish my day and get to bed and just lie down and sleep and wake up the next morning, and it's like it's a grind all over again. Just a quick example I want to put out here. I had a patient once who lived, I don't know if you know Lagos very well. He lived somewhere around, let's just say he lived about 4 hours from work. And I was like, you wake up at 4 a.m. to get to your job at 9 a.m. And when you close at 5, you get home at almost 10, 11 at night. And I'm like, he's like, that's what I can afford. And I was like, no, that's not what you can afford. Because I had had a lot of conversations with him. But the idea was the kind of house I want to live in. This is where I can afford it. The kind of car I want to drive. If I make certain sacrifices, I need to perform. I need to, for the level of my job that I am at, I need to be at a certain place. I don't want people to see me and I was just looking at it. I was like, oh my God, because this guy could have lived 10 minutes away from work, spent more time with his family, with his wife, had a more fulfilled life, in my view. But he was just so, again, that, we have to perform, we have to measure up. You see that it speaks to, I think, depending on who you are, it just speaks to various areas of our lives.
Yeah, and that story that you just shared, it's so relatable to so many people who have visited Lagos or been to Lagos. And I'm sure it's probably a mainland versus island kind of
That is
situation.
correct.
And it really ties in with our topic for today, because I think that our society has socialized men to believe that they need to have this, like you said, performative stance in society where they are portraying themselves to be a certain way, and they don't then care for their physical health or their mental health. So this gentleman who is putting such toil on his body but thinks it doesn't matter, but that is actually going to affect his physical health, it's going to affect his mental health. And if he takes more strategic steps to actually care for himself, then his lifelong longevity, the reduction of stress levels, the reduction of cortisol levels, the reduction of inflammative processes in his body, the list is endless of the kind of pathology that he could potentially avoid. So talk to us about how society has socialized men into not prioritizing themselves as valuable.
Right. Okay, so I'm going to articulate this in a way that I think is going to be offensive, but I'm just going to put a caveat out there first, okay?
Okay.
When we have this conversation, I would like anyone listening to not think about this as a blame conversation.
Mm.
I want to think about things in terms of cause and effect.
Okay.
So, if one thing is happening, we are saying that it is most likely that this other thing will happen. It doesn't mean that one thing is to blame for the other thing happening.
Mm.
From my understanding, I think that religion is society. And, when you look at the history of the world and how the British colonized, I want to say 90% of the world, there's a lot of societal values today that come from religious, and by religious I would say Christian values.
Mm.
What am I speaking to? When you tell a man that he is the head of the home, I think that people don't understand how defining that can be. Because how do you as a doctor tell people that you were sick and you didn't know what to do about it? There's an expectation that you should be able to help yourself. You should know what to do. And the Bible literally compares the man to Jesus and says, you are the head of the home, like Christ is the head of the church. And again, these things are humbling when I think about them, because I don't think people really understand. People is like, no, that's not, the Bible didn't mean that he shouldn't take care of his mental health. I'm not saying that that's what the Bible said. I'm telling you that I think there's a huge sense of responsibility on that man to take care of everyone else. You see, he cannot be weak. And I talked about the doctor. Think about the general in the army. What happens when the general runs away from battle and says, "This isn't my fight"?
Mhm.
What do you expect to happen to the rest of the people? What happens if the pilot of a ship or a plane on the speaker, you're in the aircraft, and then there's turbulence, and you hear the pilot just say, "Hey, oh my God, what is going on here? I'm not so." How is everyone gonna feel? There's a responsibility on him to perform. So you would hear pilots say things like, "I was scared, I was afraid, but I couldn't show it. I had to perform. I had to step into the room. I had to be a leader. I had to show courage. I had to show strength." If you ask me, I think that that's where the man's problems began. And there's a sense that he cannot be weak. A typical example of that is, I was talking with someone the other day, and the person was saying, "I hate it when men wear women clothes on Halloween." And I said, "I get that. I understand where you're coming from. But I wonder if you understand that that is simply because you see women as weak." He said, "No, that's not it." I said, "Okay, are you okay with a man wearing Captain America?" He said, "Yeah, of course." I said, "But you're not Captain America, though. You do realize that Captain America is a character. And that is, you're a man, but you find it problematic to wear female clothing because somehow it says something about you." Okay, what does being wearing Captain America say about you? What does it say? It says you're strong. It says you're macho. It says you're. So you can see a man wear almost anything. But once they see a man, and I'm not saying that any man should dress as a woman. That's not the conversation. The conversation is, why does it you don't even know why it makes you feel weird. You don't even know why it makes you feel bad. It's just from the inside. It's like, no, don't look at that one. So, of course, when a man cries, we have a problem with it. Why? Why do you find it comfortable for a woman to cry and you comfort her, but when your man cries, when your brother cries, you can hold him? How do we feel when we see men hugging each other? I told my brother the other day, I said, "I love you, bro." He didn't reply. I said, "I love you." He said, "Bros, this is what you do." It was like, it's weird. But I can tell girls I love them. Girls can say I love you. There's a there's a need. There's a deep seated need to not be associated with anything that even remotely resembles weakness. So of course, when we're talking mental health, I mean, think about it. I wear braces today, okay, for my knees, and that's because when I came, some of the jobs that I got needed me to stand and walk for long periods of time. But even though I knew I was in pain, I kept going because I said to myself, "What would they say about me?" I'm thinking about these things long after the fact. I'm asking myself, why didn't you stop? You knew that you were in pain, but I couldn't disappoint my family. I assure you, my wife, if she's cooking in the kitchen and her leg, "Babe, come on, please, come and take over here. I can't do this thing anymore," and she'll go and sit down because she doesn't feel she's okay with being weak for me to support her. She's okay with needing support. She's okay with needing help. How many men have we heard about that lost their jobs and for 6 months they won't tell their wives anything? Why do you think so? I don't want to look weak. Meanwhile, the woman, I don't know, I've never heard, maybe it's happened, there's always exceptions to the rule, but how many women will lose their jobs and not come home and be like, "Babe, I lost my job today," or or even call him immediately? Because we do not want to be weak. So when we're talking about men, so if you can imagine with physical health, when he's having surgery and he's done with the surgery, even though it's painful, he's like, yeah. Because if he says, they say, why, be a man, man up. So he can't cry, he can't show pain, he can't be weak, he can't be unhappy, he can't be depressed, he can't have anxiety, because if he does, he's weak. If he needs help, he's weak. How many couples have I had that the woman has literally had to drag the man? Every time I see a couple, I always ask them, so how did you guys get here? The man will just look at the woman, I'm here because of her. Because him seeking out help makes him look weak. Him say, let's go for couples. What does that man know? That if it's even a woman, she wants to help me in my own. What does she know? I am meant to be the head. But again, these are not conscious thoughts. He just knows that he is not comfortable. He's not okay with doing that, with being weak. And I think that that is where society, and again, I really want to emphasize that religious part, because I think that when we understand the source of something, we can begin to deconstruct. We can begin to say, what is going on here? Can we see how this is affecting us? Can we make changes? Can we maybe begin to give our men a different message? To say, hey, look, but yeah, this is a
Wow.
whole huge topic. Yeah.
It really is, because you've hit on so many important points about how religion affects the way we see ourselves and the way we position ourselves in society and in the roles that we have. And you also talked about a man's response to his own physical pain, and also how he responds to emotional pain and stress because he believes that his partner is expecting things from him that his partner may not be expecting at all. And those burdens have not necessarily been put on him by his partner. Some partners might put that on him, but it might actually be more of a societal pressure, especially if his partner is a reasonable person who would want to share the burdens with him in that situation. And so you've said a lot that will affect the sensibilities of some people, because once we start questioning the way we address religion and the way we interact with religion, people don't like it.
Many people shut down.
Yes.
Once you say it, there are people who don't listen anymore. And look, they will be there, okay? They will be there physically in that conversation. But everything you say after that, mentally they're gone.
Yeah. But it's so important for us to question the way we think and why we think the way we think, because if we don't, then we're just living out a script that someone else has written for us. And you don't then know if that script is detrimental to you as a human being, because you are a unique person and the person that wrote that script is not you. So it's really about analyzing this and saying, I can take this part and I won't take this part. So when someone questions you about why do you believe the way you believe, you should be able to give them an answer. And I think that is extremely important to us saying that we are rational thinking, critical thinking human beings.
Let's emphasize that again, please. When someone is asking you, I feel like what you just said is really important. So let's just say it again, because it was part of a long thing. When someone asks you, why are you doing something? It's not an attack. It's not a blame game. As Africans, we experience this a lot because of how we grew up. I mean, I was talking the other day with my wife how it's just so rampant. When anything happens to you, people. I made a video about this that I'm going to post soon. If you have an accident at 8 a.m., there are people that would ask you, why didn't you leave the house at 7 a.m.? It's so interesting. Like, there are just people that are looking to blame. So sometimes when you question someone and say, why do you believe in this? It almost comes like, are you trying to blame me for believing it? So they get so defensive. But I just want to say, if someone says, why do you believe? Even if you might get defensive in a moment, when you go back home, like, we really should begin to question things. This is so important. Just ask yourself, why? Why? And yeah, I just wanted to emphasize that.
Yeah. It's really so important. And so now talking about, so men who have found themselves in this society, brought up in this societal structure, are have put these burdens on themselves because of the way they perceive themselves in society. What are the manifestations of mental health illness in men, which might not necessarily be so clear to people around them, or it might just be in a trait that they say men are men, but that might actually be concealing mental health illnesses? Because sometimes, women will call their friends up and say, I'm really, really feeling tired today, I'm struggling today. And their friend might not need to say anything, they just be there on the phone in silence, and that has become a safe space for them. But sometimes men are not necessarily able to articulate how they're feeling with words. So what are the signs, and sort of features of mental health illness in men?
Okay, so I think that men would experience the general signs of anxiety and depression,
Mm.
and most mental health challenges. Um, what I would really like to focus on is how I think some of these things can manifest, especially from the black male perspective. Um, I think that one of the things that you can find is someone who gets really angry a lot. Um, and again, anger has a certain strength to it, a certain perceived strength that I think many men would turn to when they are feeling this way to kind of compensate for that perception of weakness that they have inside of them. So what I find is that a lot of men, and some women, would really just get angry all the time, aggressive, dominant, and just trying to, in I think, a bid to gain control of what is going on inside of them. There's a sense that if they can control what is outside, there's a sense that they can put everything in order the way they imagine it to be, then that kind of gives them a pseudo control. Another thing that I think I've noticed is addictions. Addiction to sex, addiction to alcohol, addiction to porn. Um, these things can sometimes serve as an outlet to ignore what is going on. And again, if we kind of translate this to physical stuff, whenever you have something that gets your adrenaline pumping, there's a tendency for you to. We've had people in battle who were shot and they didn't even realize they were shot. They kept fighting, and then when they were done, it's like, well, wait a minute. And sometimes I think when we go through our days too, you might be so busy, then later when you find a cut on your skin and it's painful, and you're like, well, how come I didn't even know when this thing happened? So I think that a lot of them are, it's addictions to all of these things, and I see this a lot, especially sexual addictions. Some of these people, they're married, they're in relationships, they don't know what's happening, they really want to change, but because they're seeking help in the wrong places, it never really comes, and they keep falling back into those cycles, and they don't understand why. It's like, how many people have we seen who are truly sorry in the moment, but it's like, boom, they're back again, they're back again, they're back again. And the third thing for me is that many of these men just keep busy. Now, this is a huge one. Business here, business there. You've made millions of dollars. I remember meeting someone the other day here in Canada that's so rich. And it was so interesting, like, so rich. I'm talking the kind of money he was mentioning, right? I was just thinking to myself, if I had that, I would just be going on vacations with my family, because the business was, what's it called now? A business that runs itself. It was I don't know what they call it in the business world, but it could run itself. And but no, he just needed to be out there. And he was telling me, he said, my wife, she's always begging me to stay, but I have to be on the move. I can't just sit down one place. And I was just hearing all of that, and I'm like, yep, yep, yep. You can't sit one place, and I see that. Because he said, when I sit, I have had people tell me when I sit home. I remember one of my friends used to tell me when her father stays home for a while, he gets sick. Of course he would get sick because you see, there's so much going on inside that if you're not out there keeping busy, if you're not being distracted by the world, and so that's why they close from work. If they don't have anything else to do, they go to the beer parlor. They want to sit down. They have to be, the engine has to keep going because whenever they sit down to reflect, to rest, those feelings begin to come up. And obviously, they can't even recognize it. They don't know that that's what it is.
Wow.
So I guess for me, I don't even like to talk about anxiety, depression. I want to say when you sit still in a quiet room, just try it out. Sit still in a quiet room and think about your life. How do you feel? If you don't feel amazing, then it means there's something. Now, don't get me wrong. There's something doesn't always mean there's a problem. There's
Mm.
something means there is something. That's all it means. And that means that something can be addressed. So, yes, maybe you haven't paid your child's school fees. That is something, right? It doesn't mean maybe you're trying to work to make some money, but you can see how that is moving in a direction. But if there's something for you and you just can't place a finger on it, because many times people sit in front of me and it's like they're having all this, I don't even know, I just don't. Do you ever feel this way? Do you ever feel, yes, yes? Now it's like you're putting words to it and it's like, yes. So I would say, if you just feel like I'm not okay, because your body would tell you, it's, our mental health is like our physical health. It will tell you. You will know where there's something wrong. And I think another way that it can also manifest is with headaches.
Mm.
I think headaches are huge. Some people talk about migraines, severe. They have to be out there popping the pills, or they have to be out there taking alcohol. They have to be out there doing all these things just again to take that pain away. And I would just say maybe it's those 3 or 4 things that I would say I have observed personally in the Black community that I think if you are experiencing any of this, if you find that you're always very angry, just angry, and you're always there's a tendency to want to hit people, to hit things. I would say look into that. If you find that you have these addictions, things that once you're free, once you're not busy, it's like your mind just travels there immediately because you need to keeping busy, or you need to distract yourself. Then that would be something to look into. And if you find that you always want to work, you always want to be on the move, because if you're still, again, that feels uncomfortable for you, that might be something to look into. And what was the final one? I think it's just the headaches. Yeah, headaches are a huge thing, and I think that's also a symptom that I think a lot of women experience too.
Yeah. And it's really interesting that the first thing you said was anger. Because anger is really a manifestation of there's something going on the inside of you that you've not maybe necessarily come to terms with. You're feeling a lot and you're not necessarily able to articulate how you're feeling, why you're feeling it. And so anger is a manifestation of a lot more going on, and so we then label somebody as angry without actually understanding that there is quite a lot to unpack. But also in the sort of Black man household context, for centuries men have sort of been this lion of the tribe of your house type of thing, where daddy is home, everybody should go and sit down and look good and sit at the dining table, make sure everything is nice and clean. Somebody should go pick up his briefcase and make him feel like, oh, everything is nice and perfect.
Everyone is tiptoeing around him. This is how our moms, I think, displayed more anger, but that's just because we were free with them. For many of us, we were free to display and talk back, and for many of us, our dads were tiptoeing because we knew you don't want to unleash the dragon. You just don't want to. There was that fear, I think, around them, and many people actually relate to this. So it's huge. Yeah.
And I think that is quite a big thread that sort of connects quite a lot of people in a lot of Black households all around the world. So how do we then start exploring this and saying, okay, this thing that we've said is normal is actually rather traumatic? Because why should a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old be afraid that their dad is coming back home from work. That is trauma. And so, in as much as they might then become adults who have cordial relationship with their parents, they still have this thing within them that prevents them from having open relationships with their parents, and then also probably affects their future relationships with partners or members of the opposite sex. So it's, I can see you moving your head.
It's like a cascade of all this. It's just like a cascade of, it's like the dominoes are just falling. Like one thing just goes wrong and everything just crashes. And I don't know, man. Like it's heartbreaking. It's truly heartbreaking. It's a lot to. It's one of those things that when your eyes are open to, it's almost a burden that you carry, because it's like you're just seeing so many things. And these people seem happy. They seem established. They seem, I worked in a hospital in Nigeria, a private hospital, where we used to have a lot of wealthy patients. And I would see people really struggle, just really struggle. And it's huge. So that's that's how I was shaking my head, because if you want to talk about where it leads to, or the kind of things that it can lead to, that's just a never-ending list. That's a never-ending list.
And so how do we then start exploring that? Or maybe we might not be able to do that for generations before us, but for Gen Z, millennials, how do we then start exploring to say, okay, well, this feeling that you're feeling is anger. Let's learn how to articulate it, and let's start trying to explore it, as opposed to just saying your anger is bad. Why don't we try to name the feeling that you're experiencing? How do we start encouraging men to articulate what is going on in their minds?
So you and I, we come from a collectivist culture. We live in a Western culture that is very individualist. I find that there's benefits, I think, from my perspective, to the individualist culture and the collectivist one. What I do like about the collectivist one is that we are a community. I think that even though we want to take responsibility for ourselves, for our behavior, I also think that we need our community. We need to help each other. I am someone who has imagined building a community of people who are just like-minded, who can support each other. Not a church, just a space where we can have really deep conversations and just be a part of something that's bigger than ourselves. And the reason I say that is because our conditioning is affecting it's affecting all of us. What do I mean by that? There's the thing that tells the man that he's a macho man also told the woman that the man is a macho man. So even when you find a man who's trying not to be macho, there's a woman out there who's saying, you're the word, you're weak, you're all of that. Interestingly, I went to a movie with a girl once when I was in med school, and I cried at the movie. I still remember that movie, 7 pounds. I don't know if you've seen it, the Will Smith one.
It's really moving. Yeah,
it moved me. Like he just sacrificed himself. And I remember that girl. She never wanted to go on a date with me. Like, what is wrong with you, crying at a movie? I also remember going on a date with someone, and she wanted to drink alcohol. I mean, I do take alcohol now sometimes, but then I was just like, nah, I'm not gonna take alcohol. So I didn't want to take alcohol. I took juice or something, and that was the last date. For some reason, all I'm trying to say is, there's this idea that maybe a man goes out, he takes a lot of alcohol, he can handle himself, his drink, he can. There's our definition, and I know you kind of alluded to this when you talked about toxic masculinity, right? Because all I'm trying to say here is, before I lose myself, because this can go anywhere, is that this is a collective job. Because check out the connections. You are here now. You will have a son. You will teach him stuff. Oh, I don't know if you have kids. There's that connection of there's a man out there. He has a kid now. He as he is trying to be vulnerable, because we're saying, look, you can be human, you can be vulnerable. There's the desire that he will not be rejected by his community, because one of the that's why I brought out the individualistic and collectivist culture, because it's easy from this part of the world to say be yourself and don't care what anyone thinks about you, but that's not the way we're raised. I mean, I don't necessarily want my people to not talk to me because of who I've decided to become. You know what I mean? Like, our families are important to us, and we're not gonna this. So I guess what I'm saying is, maybe we can have more of a communal approach to it. We can all begin to change our view and begin to see each other as human. Let's just realize that the man is a human being, and understand that whether he displays those emotions or not, he feels them. I mean, there is, as a woman, the full range of emotions that you feel, this man feels them too. This is just the truth. But the question is, does he show it? Does he think it's okay to show it? Does he think it's okay to display it? Because if we don't have that conversation, then having the conversation about seeking help is just, it's mute, because we really need to begin to see the human. And honestly, we all face those struggles. I think the sexes in different forms. Um, and the idea is really to come out of that performative space, so that we can really begin to see. Because I like thinking about people as human, because when you do that, then you begin to think of human attributes, and it's so interesting, because when you get into a relationship with someone, if you're not thinking, is he rich, is he comfortable, is it this, is it that, is she this, is she that, does she have a good job? You're not thinking that. You're thinking, are they decent, are they honest, do they have integrity, are they disciplined, are they kind, are they able to have conversations without screaming, without once you're looking at the human attributes. There are human attributes that once you see in a human being, you don't have to worry about their job, or the kind of work they do, or the kind of, because the human being is the one doing those jobs, and that human being will be a great husband, that human being will be a great wife, a great sister, a great brother, a great friend, a great father. The human being. And that's one of the things that blows my mind when we talk about leadership in the country, in the world. The conversation about, the police in Nigeria, and someone made a post the other day. Two girls were accused of doing something, and Nigerians burnt them on the spot. And we're crying NSARS, as if NSARS is the problem. It's the people that are in the SARS force. Those people that burnt people at the spot, are those not the future SARS employees that will still go back into that system and do the exact same thing? Are they not the same people that will get into those leadership positions? So again, I think we just really need to come down and see ourselves as human, which is a really tall task. It's not going to be easy, but I think that with spaces like yours, spaces like mine, we're having these conversations. I see a lot of people, resonating, because some people, they sit down. I get men who send messages to me, and they're like, it's like, I've always felt this way, but I couldn't say anything about it. I couldn't do anything about it. And then now it's like, oh, thank you for validating me. Thank you, because so there's people that feel that out there. And I think, it's obviously going to take time. It's going to be a generational thing, maybe 3-4 generations down the line before some of these things can be truly, the effects can be truly seen. So I think where we can start is by being human, by seeing each other as human. And I know it sounds simplistic, but honestly, if you have a man and he lost his job, You're not pushing him out there and saying, go get another job. And you're asking him, how does it feel? It's okay. I'm here to support you. And the man also, finding relationships where you can actually be human. Try to share those things with people. And, men should hug each other more. And, oh man, like, men should just tell each other they love themselves more. Men should just try to be more human. And for me, I think, women don't have a problem going to therapy. Why? Because they find it's okay to seek for help. They find it's okay to be weak. And I mean, think about it. The Bible calls them the weaker vessel. Let's just there's a whole lot to this, man. But I think that that's where it starts. Just be human. I find it so powerful to really get back to that, because that's who we are. I always think about animals, like the goats. The goat does not like the baby goat because the baby goat can eat grass or can jump or can fly. It's just a baby goat. Like, you're a goat and I'm a goat and I love you.
Yeah.
That's all.
Wow.
It's just go back to that. That's what I think would help us. But hey, what do I know?
Wow. That is really amazing. And obviously, creating safe spaces for people to be able to talk is so crucial. And I think that is definitely lacking in terms of the male space. So, just even using Taboo Doctor as an example, about 65 to 75% of the guests that we've had on over 40 episodes have been women. And
My followers too.
so and so women are more willing to talk about things that are complicated. So, women are sharing their stories of infertility, child loss, postnatal depression. A few hours before this recording, I just recorded one with a lady sharing her story of surviving domestic violence and leaving an abusive husband. And so women have been socialized into talking about what is going on. And I think that ability to do so, to be vulnerable, enables them to heal and to be able to then start the process of healing, regardless of how slow it is. But once you open the door to healing, then you know that you are moving in the right direction. So how can we encourage men to do the same? And maybe from men, because as you said earlier, it's less likely to be received from a female. But how do we then encourage more men to themselves be vulnerable and open, and then to open up safe spaces for other men to come and start receiving healing?
I I think that for me it would be two things. For any man who has discovered that part of himself,
Mm,
to share it more.
yeah.
Um, to share it in the sense that you talk to your other men, and which I think is one of the reasons why I started my page, to just kind of share that and be like, look, it is amazing to be human. It is amazing to feel the full range of your emotions. And um, the other part for me, I think, would be to model it to because like I talk about my son, he's a crier. He cries a lot more than his sister. He's always upset about things, and he would just go straight to tears. And nah, we let him do that. That's a conscious thing. Because we talk about, well, one of the things that we talked about today was my wife is older than me, so my daughter's older than my son. And we he was saying, this is what they came and said to me. They said, mommy is older than daddy, and Kara is older than Sachi. And that he was so happy about that, and he came and gave me a high five. And I was just thinking, I was like, it's actually okay. My son now knows that it's okay for his wife to be older than him, and that's not a problem, because it's not. So we are modeling that, and then we're sharing. So I think that that's how, because again, many times when you share this thing with a man who hasn't experienced it, it does seem kind of strange, and they will fight. they will reject. And oh man, I've had some conversations with some people, and yeah, it's gonna take a while. These are core beliefs again that have been transferred over generations. And now there's something things we're doing in psychology where we talk about epigenetics. Okay, so something is happening to you in real time and it's altering your brain. And after it does that, your child inherits it. So, I mean, we're talking about hundreds of years of understanding, hundreds of years of seeing things a certain way, hundreds of years of trying to do things a certain way, and all of a sudden now we want to change it. It's not really going to be that easy. So I would say model and share. Model, if you're out there, you understand what this means. Like, me, I have my therapist. I spoke to her this morning. I model that. I share it with people. I talk to my therapist, to just make it easier for other people to say maybe this isn't so bad, and then to share. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I would say.
That's amazing. And the Black African and the Black American communities are so rooted in religion. And after EndSARS, I did an episode with a clinical psychotherapist who was talking about how, a lot of the generations before us seem to use religion and marriage as a safe space, as a place of comfort, as a means to survive when they were going through their own kinds of trauma as well. But now we have more opportunities to do that. But how can we then get our religious bodies who are still so entrenched in what our society is to then also then start becoming safe spaces for people in the reality of actual mental health? Because like you said, so someone might say, oh, they're feeling low, they're feeling anxiety, they're suicidal, and their pastor prays for them, but does not signpost them to a psychotherapist, does not signpost them to a doctor, does not signpost them to a counselor, does not let them know that there's medication, there's therapy, there's so many things available. But we are so focused on expecting an external power to come in and remove the struggles that we're feeling in our emotional and mental health. What would you say to that? Oh no, I made you laugh again.
No, I'm just laughing because like I have my answer already. I don't know.
You don't
It's
know?
like
Oh no.
it's like it's so. I'll give you an example. One time I had a life with a pastor, and we were talking about stuff, and his members were attacking me on the live. Like, shut up! Listen, when some, it's I. I'm struggling because I don't want to go into a conversation about religion.
Mm,
Um, I think that question that you asked, why are you doing what you're doing?
mm,
I think that's a personal responsibility for everyone.
mm.
If I asked you that question and it was a question you could ask yourself, it would be fine, right? If I came to you and I said, but tell me, why do you do that? You'd be like, I don't even know,
Mm,
let me go and think about it. Like,
yeah.
I do that a lot,
Yeah.
right? But then there's a way I ask you and you'd be like, what do you mean?
Mm,
Why are you asking me that? Um, so I don't know, man. It's difficult. It's truly difficult. You talked about how the black community sought. These are histories that people need to understand because this is true. We suffered. We look. Black people have suffered. Black people have gone through a lot, and we needed something. We needed something. And I think that we really embraced religion, and I'm just being careful. I'm being careful because I think that religion is very important. I think that I truly believe that there are people who will break down if they didn't have religion. I
mm,
truly believe that there are people who would The WHO defines mental health as a state of well-being where you can successfully adapt to the stresses of life. I always find that so interesting. Successfully adapting to the stresses of life. That is what I think religion does for people. It helps adapt to the stresses of life. There are people, look, it is better for someone to say, I don't have money right now, but God can bless me 20, 30 years from now. That keeps them going.
Yeah.
They go every day. If that person maybe truly understood their situation and thought there's no hope, what is there to live for?
Wow, that's true.
I have seen people, who have lived years. They just that there's a hope, there's a belief, there's a faith, and that's why it's a faith, right? That's why it's a faith, and it's so strong. So it's really helpful for some people. So when I say I don't know, I want you to know that my struggle is really about, I don't know where to draw the line between challenging people on the things they believe about their faith that I also know is helpful to their mental health. So that's a struggle for me. That's a struggle for me. So if you ask me, once you talk about pastors, and I don't know. I mean, maybe one of the solutions I'm thinking could be that more pastors should get an education, about mental health, because maybe they should understand that there's spiritual health, there's mental health, there's emotional health, there's financial health. I have someone now who advises me financially. There's things we don't know. It's like there's experts in this field. So yes, maybe we should have the church dedicate a huge amount of the church money to pay a resident psychiatrist, a resident psychologist, a resident counselor who can help the people to navigate. The pastor, he takes himself out of that. Pray for the people, lead them spiritually, help them with their faith, but leave the experts to handle. But again, we still have pastors who, a woman is pregnant and having preeclampsia, and they still say bring her to the church. There's, even when it comes to physical health, there's still pastors that are struggling with the doctor. I was hearing a testimony the other day of somebody that said, I don't want to go there.
But you're right. You are right, and we do have those issues, and quite a lot of what we've talked about on Taboo Doctor has also been relating to maternal health and the fact that Black females have really poor maternal health outcomes in the UK, in the US, and then also talking to people based in Nigeria about reasons that women have women in Nigeria have poor health outcomes there as well, and talking about this thing about having a cesarean section being a thing of the devil and not being a natural birth. So we did an entire episode with a midwife asking what is a natural childbirth. So so these are things that I continue trying to try to challenge on a regular basis. So I recognize your frustration in that situation. Definitely.
Like, where do you begin? Where do you begin? I have had a client who just gave birth to a bouncing baby girl. Beautiful, just lovely looking child, and got into the room and she's crying. Why are you crying? Her mother-in-law storms out that she had a cesarean section.
Wow. So
there's a rejection of the mother. There's a rejection of the baby. And I can't even blame mama. I can't. I can't. It's not her fault. That's all she knows.
That's all she knows. Wow.
That's all she knows. And it's so, it's like, where do you begin to challenge that? Like, how do you do that? Because there's certain aspects, and this is the thing. How are you going to challenge certain aspects of the Bible and leave out the rest?
Wow.
This is where you're going to find people struggle. I think for most people, for people like me, there's like, I'm just like, okay, there's parts that I follow and there's parts that I'm like, not me. And I'm able to do that. But for some people, it's whole or nothing.
Yes.
They either if you question a part of the Bible and they accept it, that means all of the Bible is just,
Wow.
they have to cancel it. So they can't do that. They can't. So whenever you bring up these issues, it's like, yeah, yeah, man. I had a life with someone the other day, and I don't know how much time we have. Can I say this?
Yes, yes, please.
I had a life with someone the other day, and I don't know if you will connect to this, but I was telling her that in my marriage it's a partnership, that I'm not the head of nothing. And she was saying that no, the man is the head of the home. But then she kept going back to the passage of the Bible that says, submit yourself one to another. And I was trying to ask her, I said, don't you see your struggle? You're saying the man is the head, but you also say submit one to another because you also want him to submit to you. And that's so do you see that that's what you want? Do you actually recognize? But it's just that you don't want to question that part of the Bible that says the man is the head, because to you, it's like questioning authority. And I was like, I get it. But do you, the mere fact that you're quoting submit yourselves one to another tells me that you also want that. That appeals to you. You see that you would like to be in a relationship where there's a submission to each other. But you want that, then you also want him to be the head. So it's kind of confusing to me, but that's the struggle. That's the struggle. It's a huge, huge struggle.
It is. And it's really interesting that you just talked about partnership with the female partner with men. How can female partners then make home or their relationship a safe space? Because sometimes the pressure that some men feel to continue this performance has also been put on them by their female partners, because she wants a certain kind of lifestyle, she wants the children to go to a certain kind of school, she wants to live in a certain kind of household, she wants to wear this ashrabi, this frequent number of times every year. How can women make, without going into this subservient idea that our culture has also fed into, but how can we also then say, okay, this is a safe space and you don't have to feel that you have to perform even within the confines of the relationship?
Let me be honest with you. I believe that I see our conditioning and all our trauma as a raging fire that's coming after us. And I think that for all these generations, we've been running from the fire. I think that we're going to need some people to stand in the gap and put out the fire. The thing about putting out a fire is sometimes you could get burnt. Why am I saying this? There are many marriages that shouldn't be today. There are many children who should not be living in the same home with their parents. There are many. You get the message. There are certain places that we have to break up right now to create that better future, and that's gonna be hard. That is gonna be hard, because that is what breaking the cycle means. You may not expect, because we have to think about how our conditioning affects us. These are unconscious things. You find people are seeking out their spouses and they're being directed by their trauma bonds. I mean, I had a celebrity the other day say when her relationship is peaceful, she gets bothered. So she has to do something to create some chaos. And it was so powerful. I'm like, oh, I wish she understood what she just said.
Because we're so used to toxicity.
Yes! Our bodies get used to that. So even though that girl, if I was speaking to her, I'm sure she hates it when there's conflict. But without conflict, she also feels uncomfortable. So there's a part of you that recognizes that this conflict isn't so great, but when it's not there, you feel weird because you have been used to it for so long. So, it's like you hear people say, we love makeup sex when we fight and punch each other and, all those dynamics, and people are used to it. So you literally need someone to say enough and stand in the gap for the rest, so that the rest can begin to observe, can observe healthy. And I just think that's where the struggle is. I think that that's where the struggle is.
Wow, 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 wow. And what about this fear of using, taking medication or antidepressants, anti-anxiety medication, or engaging with therapists? I mean, it probably still goes back into this thing of being seen as weak and feeling that you should be able to care for your own health. But what would you say to people who felt that, okay, no, that they'd draw the line at a certain thing and wouldn't engage in that kind of service if available?
It's interesting that even though we're talking about black men, there's a lot of collectivist cultures that actually see mental health as the other day I was reading about, because right now I'm actually doing cultural diversity. Like the Iranian culture, there's some Asian cultures. If you're sick, if I was talking to someone, a therapist from Brazil the other day, and she was saying, no, there's only sane and crazy. So if you do anything that has to do with mental health, you're crazy. So just stay on the side if you want to be okay. So we're not the only ones, and I think that again, we need to stop. This when we're having that conversation around culture these days, there's something they call an ableist culture. It's like, even there's a way we see people that cannot perform. There's a way we see people that cannot perform. So if I, and this even all connects with being vulnerable in relationships. And you hear people say, this man isn't soft, this person isn't emotional, this person, because he has to be strong all the time. But anyways, I just wanted to say that needing help, what I would say to that person is, needing help is human.
Yeah.
You see, needing help is human. And the reason I say that is because I was watching a video the other day about someone who's disabled, and she was just saying that sometimes when she goes into the coffee shop, she says, "Oh, could you help me get the cup? Could you help me do that? Could you help me do that?" And that there's a way people look at her. And she was saying, but human beings who are not even disabled ask for help every day. And that was just so, I don't know, that just kind of gave me a different perspective. Like, we actually don't live in isolation.
Mm.
You were able to have this podcast because we're helping each other. The questions you're asking are helping me think. The converse, it's like this is what we're always doing. And for some reason, we look at disabled people different. So I guess for me, it's just needing to take medication doesn't make you look weak.
Yeah.
I don't know if you see what's happening in the US. Donald Trump did his possible best to show that COVID did not bring him down. Why? Because it will make him look weak. I'm the president. I'm the man. I can't be sick. Because if I'm sick, every time he was in the hospital, he wanted to drive out. He wanted to have that speech. He was coughing. Really, really bad cough. And he wanted to still perform. So being weak is human. Needing help is human. It's who you are. And even though the society has told you differently, they're lying. They are lying. Donald Trump is a human being. He's not a goat. He's not a sheep. He's the president, but it's a role. But what he is human. And if we remember that, I think all these things, medication, if you need it, you take it. It's like, oh, I need this. I'm in pain. I'm suffering. And finally, I think what I think this also connects to is remembering that we are human would allow us to embrace the full range of what it means to be human.
Wow.
I was talking to my mother-in-law the other day, and I was saying, one could die any day, and she said, "God forbid." And I said, "I don't understand what you mean by that." And she was shocked. If I said someone was going to give birth, you wouldn't say God forbid, but when we say someone is going to die, you say God forbid. But this is like a reality of life.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people die every day? Like, what do you think? What is your expectation that the people you care about will not die, but other people's relatives will die? And you know, there's that conversation when there's accidents. Oh, God saved me. What about the people that died?
Mm.
Like,
Wow.
how about them? They have brothers like you. They have sisters. So there's, it will allow us. If you remember that you're human, then you remember that you could die at any time. That's just what being human means. It means that you experience joy sometimes. It means you experience peace sometimes. It means you experience suffering. It means you have pain. It means you hurt yourself. It means you will fall. Then maybe you won't be so blamey. You know, if somebody has an accident, you won't be like, why didn't you leave by? Because you're like, oh, that's the human experience. When people drive cars, they are at risk of having accidents. Yes, you hope that it won't happen to you, but it is a part of it. It is what comes with being human and existing on this earth. So if we do that, then we're able to like just be like, oh, it's just it's part of life, and maybe we can move on and get, because the more you live, your pain is not going to last forever. You will experience joy. You will experience peace. It's just a part of the living experience. And there's no Christian in the world that will tell me they've never lost someone dear to them. There's no Christian that will tell me they've never been in pain. There's no Christian that will tell me they've never been sick. So why do we keep pushing that narrative when Christians and Muslims and atheists and everybody, they get sick, they get die, we experience everything.
Yeah.
So why do we think that we won't, or why do we run away from it? Oh, I don't know.
That is amazing. Basically, the human experience is common to everybody, and we just need to start to empathize and sympathize with one another and recognize that as well. That has been so amazing. So as we're rounding up now, what would you like men to know about their mental health? What is the most important thing that you want them to remember about their mental health?
I would like a man to know that he is human. I would like him to know that it is beautiful to be human. I would like him to know that he deserves to be loved. He deserves to be cared for. He deserves to be seen. He deserves to be heard. I would like a man to know that it is okay to be weak, because that is what human beings do. I would also like a man to know that there is a unique relationship that can be had with other human beings. And I'm not talking about marriage. I'm not talking about being in the house and paying your bills together and having the same bank accounts and buying houses and going into business and having kids and raising them and being a father. No, no, no. I'm talking about connecting with another human being. I always tell people that I don't think I have a definition of soulmates. I think that because we live in a world that causes us to be so performative, we forget who we are. And I think that having a soulmate is not something that you find, it's something that you get to achieve in the context of a relationship. So the way I see it is, you get into a relationship with this person, both of you create a super safe space for you to become who you are. And I think that the soul is the essence of who we are. And you could be bedmates, you could be housemates, you could be money mates, but in order for you to be soulmates, I think that you have to be so safe with each other that you can show me who you are and I can show you who I am. It's almost like I'm reaching into you and I'm saying, soul, come. Let's commune, let's talk, let's relate, let's connect. All the other stuff, it's performative. All the other stuff. I mean, think about it. If we were living in a garden that had food and water, and what would we be doing? Like, we go to work 8 hours a day, some of us 12 hours a day. Like, if you didn't have to work, if the food was available in the forest, in the just pluck the thing and eat it, if you didn't have to do all of that to work, to what would we do? We would be connecting. You see, this is who we are. We're human, and I would just like a man to remember that, because it's really beautiful to connect with another human being, and there's a relationship to be had. There's there's something there that transcends beyond all the other stuff, where you can feel a desire to go back home. You can feel when you're out of the house, you actually feel like it's not the world that becomes your safety, it's home. Because when you're out there in the world just seems so strange to you, and it's like, no, I just need to go back home. That can be hard, you can have that relationship. And I really hope that more men would get to experience that.
That is amazing. Thank you so much for joining us on today's episode. Where can our listeners find you online?
Facebook and Instagram, I guess, at the Waking Human. Yeah, that's me, the Waking Human.
That is fantastic. Thank you so much. That has been so enlightening and such an interesting, reflective conversation about how we all carry trauma. It's been really great. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.